What's up, everybody? Welcome. Solo guy here today. It is Monday afternoon, just back from 49ers Monday practice, and we got some stuff to get into. We have in my 2023, the year of experimentation, on the Haberman calendar, experimented with, I think, an upgraded quarterback grading system today. I think it's going to be better. I think it's going to account for more nuance. I think it's going to be even easier for golf people understood the last scoring system, which I love because it was fun to talk to people about the golf scoring system for quarterbacks, but something that I think is even, if everybody can't understand it, then it's not good enough. But I think we got something that's going to be a little bit better. So we'll go through that today. Day one of a new scoring system. I was in the lab mixing ideas, and it's the PFF. We're going PFF scoring system because somebody asked me a question over the weekend, or maybe end of last week. What would Mahomes do with the old golf scoring system? I'm not get too much into it, but the point is that I felt as I was going through throws, and I watched a couple of games. I watched the Raider-Niner game from last year, and thought about where a scoring system needs to what it needs to have, and I think the way PFF grades throws is good because it includes half points, zeros, plus a half, plus one and a half, plus two. Two's exceptional throws. Two is what they call a plus two is a Eli Manning to David Tyree. Oh no, to Mario Manningham. And what they call a minus two is like Brett Favre on the Vikings across his body in a playoff game. So we'll get into that today, and I'll tell you about how the quarterbacks looked. The 49ers have one more practice at home before they go to Vegas tomorrow. They'll go to Vegas tomorrow. And then they'll have an off day Wednesday. Then they'll practice Thursday, Friday. Today, it was hot in Santa Clara, relatively speaking. It was one of the hotter days. When I left, it was 90 degrees. Not a lot of breeze, high sun, which is fine. I think it's good for them. I think they, most of the country is very hot, hotter than the Bay Area, although Santa Clara obviously is hot. But I think it's good for a little adversity. It felt today like whether it was approaching the second week of practice. Wednesday is 2 weeks since their first practice. And maybe it's that, maybe it's the heat, maybe it's a combination of things. Thought it wasn't the liveliest practice. I remember the beginning of Niners camp, George Kittle said, everybody is bouncing around on day 1 and 2. Who's bouncing around on day 6? Well, here we are well past day 6. And it was a little harder to bounce around. So they're going to go to Vegas where they're going to practice early in the morning on Thursday and Friday. I think it's going to be like 8 a.m. practices. And it's going to be hot, but that's good. I mean, most of this sport is played in discomfort, just like most of life is played in discomfort. So if you're preparing for the real thing, you don't want to be comfortable all the time. And it's good to be a little uncomfortable. So that's going to be the case for them. We'll see what tomorrow's practice looks like. I think tomorrow's supposed to be a little bit of a harder practice, but today they had a lot of teams. Some people on the stream checking in. A balmy 102 in Mississippi today. MISSI, SSI, PPI. Over 100 for 2 months straight in Texas. Aaron on the stream says, I was at training camp today. A lot of people complaining about the heat living in Sac. I thought today was a nice, cool day. I know you know what that's like. Yes. Davis, California, stepping in here. So it was fine. Yeah. I mean, was it hot on the scale of what the temperature has been there? Yes. Was it too hot for football practice? Absolutely not. And I think you need it. I think you need it. Nathan has 106 9 days in a row in San Antonio. That's where you go to the old Bill Miller's barbecue. Do those things still exist, Nathan, in San Antonio, Texas? I lived in San Antonio for 2 years. Bill Miller's BBQ. DR says 80 in Spokane. They got some nice golf courses still open for the rest of the fall. So, all right, let's dive into some quarterback stuff, and then we can get into some other things that stood out. The grading system that I'm trying out today, and I like, and I think it's good, is the PFF grading system. And I like it for a couple of reasons. And I really probably, if I'm going to keep doing it, should talk to somebody at PFF and really understand how they do it for GFF, for Guy Football Focus. And the reason is I got a lot of questions about like what some of my grades last week would translate to. And the beauty of using a system that is already in use is that we've got a whole database of NFL throws. We know that Josh Allen leads the league in big time throws. He had 44 of them. Now, there could be a difference of opinion. His coach might think it's different than what the PFF guys grade, but I think it gives us a good kind of baseline of, you know, how many of those throws are real, what's really worthy of a big time throw. 44 of them he played in 16 games. That's under 3 a game. So it gives you an idea of how rare those throws are. One of the best players in the league. And he was under 3 big time throws a game. And then you don't even factor in the negative throws, right? So when you factor in the negative throws, his net was not going to be +3 positive throws a game. It was going to be lower than that. So when somebody asked me last week, what if I thought Mahomes made 4 great throws, but he also would make a throw or 2 that would bring his score down, right? So it wasn't going to be +5 or +6 on the good throw scale. So throw out everything you knew about my golf scoring system, where negative is good and positive is bad. On the screen, for those of you watching, here's the scoring system. This is brought to you, by the way, by our friends at Tito's. Tito's handmade vodka. This weekend, got a few more. I spent some time with my friend Tito on Sunday, but got some shots from people. Endo, Tito's, and cranberry, which with a lime in it. Looks like on a Carnival cruise, which looks fantastic. Robert, party at my house. The handle is low. I mean, they're both low. So Robert's doing work there. So thanks for sending Tito's handmade vodka. It's numero uno. The people that know. I like it Tito's and ginger. That's very tasty. Sometimes Tito's a little lime and water. Good. Tito's and lemonade. It's fantastic. Tito's lemonade and iced tea. Well, that's a John Daly. Highly recommend. So, yeah, get after it. Send us photos. We appreciate it. Thanks to Tito's for their support of the podcast. Distilled and bottled in Austin, Texas. It's 40% alcohol by volume, namely 80 proof, and crafted to be savored responsibly. All right. So the scoring system for today, and this is what it is. So a 0 is good, and I think a 0 is interesting when it comes to the Niners. A 0 is the throw you're supposed to make. At least as the way I graded it today. I may talk to some PFF guys and find out it's different. But I was talking for quite a while today to a guy whose opinion I really respect and think is very smart, Josh Dubow of the Associated Press. And as we were talking about this, he said, you know, the Niners last year, Jimmy was number 1 and Purdy was number 2 in yards per attempt on 0 graded throws, 6 yards per attempt on 0 graded throws, which led the NFL. Jared Goff was number 3. You know, a 0 graded throw is a throw that everybody would have just made, right? It is your basic throw. It is not a high degree of difficulty throw. It is probably the right throw. It's an easy throw relative to NFL throws. And the 49ers, when they made the easy throw, the 0 graded throw last year, their quarterbacks, Jimmy and Brock, were number 1 and number 2 in the league in how many yards a 0 graded throw attempt gets you. What does that mean? It means those throws are really valuable in the 49ers offense. So, you know, it actually puts a good number on something we've talked about, which is Kyle really values. When you go back to the quote from Brandon Allen that I keep bringing back from the beginning of camp, in the Matt Mayoko story from, well, it wasn't the beginning of camp. Maybe it was last week, but you know, where he talks about, like, basically, he doesn't say it in these terms, but he basically says, you know, this offense is about making those throws, making the right throw on time accurately. And so just there's some context, right? Like, we know these throws matter across the league, but they actually matter a little bit more when it comes to the 49ers. So I'm going to give you the finals as I go through these, but it's not just the score. It's also how many throws were made. And I think what you'll see is that in a small window, like, you know, a handful of throws, you get a little differentiation in the score, but that can be swayed by one good throw or one bad throw. Anyway, Brock Purdy made a lot more throws in team today than Sam Darnold and Trey Lance did. Plus is good. Okay, this is just the way you grew up knowing scoring. All right, forget about golf scoring. Plus is good. Negative is bad. Green is good. 0 is basic. Brock Purdy today, I graded him with 5+ throws, 8 0 throws, and 3 negative throws. Now, not all those throws are equal, right? The 0 throws, he had 8 of them. Those are the good throws, or the right throws. Sorry, but he had 1, 2, 3 half throws, and actually, let me give you a better score here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 0.5 throws. So he didn't have any +1 throws, but he had 5.5 throws. So they're not great, but they're above just the minimum and good throws. Those are good throws. And this is what I like about this system. It's got a little nuance to it. So overall, he was +0.5 for Brock today. 81% of his throws, I gave a positive grade to. Next up is Trey. Now, you're going to see Trey and Sam Darnold just had less throws today. Trey today, I had Trey with 1 positive throw, with 4 0 throws, and with 2 negative throws. I gave Trey a +0.5 on a nice touchdown throw over the middle. I gave him a -1 on a easy interception to one of the linebackers, threw it right to his chest. And I gave him a -0.5, so just half on a goal line throw to Juwan Jennings, front pylon, that it was going to be a really tough play to complete, but his placement of the ball did not give Juwan the best chance to complete it, and it got broken up by a defensive back who jumped the route. So a -1 overall, because you also offset it with the positive throw. I didn't tell you Brock's negative throws, but I'll get to, and positive throws, but I'll get to that in a second. So overall, Trey today, I had him at -1. Okay, so you see, not a big. Brock was +0.5, Trey -1. Didn't have a lot of graded throws for me today. 71% of Trey's throws were positive grades. Darnold today, 3 positive throws, 4 0 throws, and 2 negative throws. He had a -0.5 on a really kind of a simpler throw that he didn't make. He had a -0.5 on a not because he took a sack and then he crossed the line of scrimmage trying to get the ball to Debo, but he took so long to decide what to do. Maybe in practice, that's what you do in practice, is try to extend the play. Maybe in a game he would do it differently. But, part of what I come into this camp and this preseason, this is where the games are going to be interesting for Darnold. I think he holds on to the ball too long. And so I'm watching him for that. In the same way I'm watching Trey on the short throws, and we're watching Brock on the risky throws. We're watching Darnold on how long does he take to make a decision. And so I gave him a half a negative play for that. He had a +1 throw, the only +1 throw for anybody today, a full +1, not a +0.5, on a touchdown. A really nice throw, I thought, to Kittle. Now, he might have been sacked on the play. I don't know, but we can't grade that. Really nice touch to Kittle in the left corner. And so overall, it was a +1 today, 85% positive grades for Sam Darnold. So that's where it stood. Let me go back and tell you about Brock. Brock had more throws today. So I just want to give you all the grades. Then we can go back to Brock here. Brock, I gave him a -0.5 on an incompletion to Debo, where I thought he was inaccurate, missed him. He had a -0.5 on a red zone throw that was just way too low. Now, we might go into the film or talk to Brock, and he'd say, "Hey, that was 3rd and goal, and I was spiking the ball at somebody's feet because we wanted to get the field goal," right? And that's a real situation. But as it looked, it was an inaccurate throw. I don't know, but that's how I graded it. And he got a -1. He and Trey are the only ones that got a -1 throw today. Actually, Brandon Allen got one too. But Trey got the -1 for an interception to Demetrius Flanagan fouls. Brock got a -1 for what's probably a pick six, but definitely an interception on a deflected ball, 4th down and 4. The blitz came. Steve Wilkes loves to bring the blitz. He was trying to get it to Juwan Jennings. The pass was deflected by Dre Greenlaw and intercepted by Tayshaun Gibson, and probably a pick six. So, in hindsight, as I'm thinking about it, given that I think probably a pick six, that could have been a negative, actually 1.5, which would take him down to an even score for the day. Because the pass was deflected at the line of scrimmage and it wasn't a straight pick, I'm leaving it at a -1. But it was the blitz came, he made a decision, he threw the ball, and it resulted in an interception. And this is not going to be pure, obviously, results based. This is going to be about what the decision was and what the throw was. But all in all, that happened. And I think today for me was about Brock making a lot of positive plays. I thought Brock made a lot of positive throws today. He continues to be, he continues to, it's difficult for him to have a totally clean scorecard. We'll see what tomorrow looks like, but he had 3 throws that got graded as negative throws today, 2.5s and 1 full. Trey had 2 throws that were graded negative. Sam had 1 throw graded negative, but Brock also had 5 positive throws and 8 zero throws. So like I said, 81% of his throws were 0 or better. I think that's pretty reflective of the way he played. I went back and watched his, the Raider game from last year. And when you watch it, if anyone has gone back, I'm sure a lot of people have gone back and watched some of the games last year. It's a reminder that he made a lot of positive plays. And he is also going to try to make plays and take risks. And, the question ultimately for him is going to be, are the risks worth it? You are allowed to take risks and make mistakes if you more than make up with them with positive plays. And he threw a lot of touchdowns. He was good in the red zone last year. He made the 0 throws. So, it's about that ratio. It's not just about the pure, the flat number of the flat number of negative throws. Like a great example, an extreme example, and not one that I would compare Brock to, but just the best example of this, right, is Favre, who threw more interceptions than anybody in the league, has thrown one of the worst negative throws in playoff history probably, but also had so many positive throws that his team was willing to live with it, and for good reason. He was one of the greatest quarterbacks we've ever seen. So that's just an idea of, like, the more plays you make, the more mistakes you're allowed to make. The question with Brock is not 13 touchdowns, 3 picks when he took over. It's the percentage of throws that, by the PFF grades were risky throws. I think his turnover-worthy plays actually outweighed his big-time throws last year. I think the number, don't quote me on this, I think the number was -4 if we took his big-time throws and his turnover-worthy plays. That's bad, obviously below 0. I think Trey was like +1. I think Jimmy was in the plus category last year. So something to be aware of. But to me, the overarching headline today was, all in all, solid day by the quarterbacks. And I think a day for Brock where you didn't come away. There have been days, maybe fairly unfairly, where you come away thinking, and I know some people said, everyone's got their own rules. Like, hey, we got to stop talking about rust, or, we got to give that up, whatever. But I thought today was a day with Brock Purdy where you came off the field, and that wasn't really even part of the process. The mistakes he made were bad throws or bad decisions or deflected ball, whatever. And the good throws he made, he made a lot of good throws. So I thought it was a good day for him. Now, what I like to do is I go through these grades before I go through what everybody has as the final numbers. And I still have not looked at those final numbers. I'm trying to keep my mind as clear of those percentages and just go for, was it a good throw? Was it in the right place? Was it in the wrong place? Was it catchable? Was it not catchable? There were some complicated plays today. There was a play that Brock lofted it down the left sideline for Christian McCaffrey, kind of coming out of the backfield with a linebacker on him. The throw was exactly where it needed to be. McCaffrey didn't have his head turned around yet. And so the ball kind of went right by him in the perfect spot. Well, does that mean Brock threw the ball too early? Christian wasn't ready for it. What do you make of that play? If Christian catches that ball, it's probably a plus 0.5 throw. And even though the throw didn't change, I didn't give it that grade. I had to give it a 0 because I didn't. Why was Christian not ready for that? Was the adjustment at the line of scrimmage for the pressure that was coming not made, and so Christian was not ready? I don't know, but so that's an example of a throw that's a little difficult, and I'll try to talk you through it and hone it in as we go. But yeah, nice play by one thing that really stands out, and we'll see this week what things look like with Davante Adams. Davante had a good game last year against the 49ers. But their safeties, Jair Brown today, he hasn't made a ton of plays per se, in the way that, Hufanga's made 2 really splash plays over the course of practices, 2 weeks of practice. But I think Jair Brown carries himself like he belongs. And today had a moment after a run play where he and Ty Davis Price were jawing quite a bit. So I think he's into it. I think he seems to at least match the spirit that the 49ers look for on their defense. But when you watch, like, one thing that really stands out when you watch him is Hufanga, Odom, Brown, Gibson. Like, their safeties look like, 3 of them we know are legitimate good pros. And Brown looks that way, but we'll see him play. Yeah, he's intense. So those were the grades. Kyle Shanahan said that he doubts, and I'm happy to answer questions about those things. Criticisms, feedback. Don't let it in a 2-week span where everybody's I'm not the Bible. I've now changed the scoring system 3 times, in part because of feedback and evolution and things that I think are broken, and trying to hone it in and get it more dialed. So you can. It's definitely great when we get footage of a throw. Like last week, there was a throw that I changed the score on after I saw a highlight. I'd given it a plus throw on a deep ball or a good throw, and then I saw from a highlight actually was kind of underthrown on a Brock ball. So, this thing's evolving. But if you're watching this, questions on scoring or ideas or feedback, that's fine. So Kyle Shanahan said today that he doesn't think that Brock Purdy is going to play in the first preseason game against the Raiders on Sunday. He said, I doubt he plays. He is going to practice both Thursday and Friday. I think part of at least his explanation was, he wants to make sure that Brock gets good work out of those practices before he guarantees that he's not going to play in the game. But I would imagine that he will. You can structure those practices so that he does. This is not a surprise. I've said for 2 weeks I don't expect Brock to play in the game on Sunday. And the reason I don't expect Brock to play in the game, I've said all along, is because this week is supposed to be the week where he finally gives up on the off days. At least I had it marked as Wednesday. Kyle said at the beginning of camp, which is 2 weeks ago Wednesday, that in 2 weeks is when their schedule has Brock coming off of this, this built-in off day that he has, so he gets a little more rest than everybody else. They don't practice Wednesday. They practice Thursday, Friday, have Saturday off, and then they play Sunday. So in my mind, 2 weeks was Wednesday, but what Kyle Shanahan said today was we're coming up on the date when they do that with Brock, where they take him off of that plan, and that is next week, which is understandable. So he's saying we're going to go through 2 weeks with this plan, and then after the first preseason game, you get Brock back on a regular schedule. So that sounds like that's the plan. That's the plan. I would expect then Brock to play against the Denver Broncos in the second preseason game. And if not in that game, certainly against the Chargers. If he plays a lot against the Broncos, maybe he doesn't play against the Chargers. Maybe he doesn't play against the Broncos and does play against the Chargers. But I expect to see him because Kyle said that we will see him I think Mayoko asked him a question about whether he, what he thinks about preseason games for Brock, and his answer was it's good to play. So he's going to play. He's just not probably going to play this week, which I think is fine. I mean, you should not have your starting quarterback coming off of a 2-week stretch of practice where he doesn't practice as much as everybody else go play in the game. If he's not ready to practice as much as everybody else, then he shouldn't play in a game. And it sounds like he's not going to play in that game. So that's good. I'm excited about that. I'm looking forward to see a lot of Brock, but I think the opportunity to see more Trey and Darnold, and for those guys to get more kind of higher level throws is going to be valuable in their competition, because they're the ones in competition. Brock is not the one that's in competition. So, one other thing that was interesting. I think Cam Inman asked about gambling. He said, gambling's been a problem for NFL players. And have you talked to him? And Kyle said, yes, we talked to him about it at OTAs. We talked to them about it at the beginning of camp. And we're going to talk about it again on Tuesday before we leave. So that is part of the extra work you got to do when you're going to practice in Davis. So in Davis, in Vegas. Comment, you really want starters out there against the convicted bounty hunter, Sean Payton, who said today no Gilligan hats on the sideline? Is Greg Williams his DC? Kill the head, the body will die. Who do we think is QB1 on Sunday? Great question. I don't know. If I had to guess right now, based on, this has really nothing to do with what we've seen, just more feel, I'm going to guess Trey. Trey's been on the team. He's been their quarterback in games. I'm not saying, quote unquote, he's earned that, but it feels like an easy one. Kyle says, the outside noise doesn't matter. The 49ers as an organization, when it comes to Jimmy and Trey and all this stuff historically, operate as if they don't hear the outside noise at all, which is the right way to operate. However, this is an easy one. To start him, and there's no discussion about whether it's fixed, I've gone back. I said for a while, I think ties will go to Trey coming out at OTAs. I don't necessarily think that's the case anymore. So, it might be. Well, I don't know. We don't know. It's got to play itself out, but that'd just be a guess. That is not based on anything Kyle said. It's not really even based on much that we've seen in practice, but that's my guess. I think Trey starts the game. I think Purdy doesn't get dressed out at all. And then Darnold follows him. And then we get some Brandon Allen, who is not in competition with those two guys. Now Trey starting the game would lead you to some theories, right? You could have they're trying to make him look good. They're trying to increase his trade market, that type of thing. So that'll be something we'll talk about. And that's a real theory to discuss. So you also add that element to it. But yeah, that's my pick. Medium says, I'm genuinely excited to get the chance to see both quarterbacks in preseason, plus the rookies, plus some second-year guys like Ty Davis Price. Yeah. I should do something, actually. That's a good idea. Later in the week, guys are looking forward to seeing it. But I think there's a battle, that 6 receiver spot, or I guess the Ronnie Bell, Chris Conley, Daz Newsome, Tay Martin, kind of that group. Who is that guy? And that is interesting. Ronnie Bell, I think, has had a good camp. I thought, early on, I felt like he dropped some balls. Isaiah Winstead, who's a rookie I've mentioned him many times. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it because he's not making the 53, but I don't think. But he catches the ball, he gets open, and he's big. So he's just somebody I've filed away. I've talked about him probably more than is warranted based on the way this roster is going to look. But he is somebody that I've filed away as could he possibly maybe one day kind of take over that Juwan Jennings role. Just somebody I've filed away in the back of my mind. But anyway, that's somebody you want to see. Jake Moody, that's going to be really important. Today was not his day to kick. Today was Ian Gonzalez, but Jake Moody's going to be important. I think this week, another thing that's going to be important is getting through Raiders practice healthy, especially on your defensive line. A little banged up there. So getting through the practice, getting through the game, getting to the preseason, all that. And I think that's important. Fish are relaxing says 49ers culture is pay your dues and you go first. Trey will start Sunday. I think it's a good way of looking at it. Yeah, that's a nice succinct way of saying it. As it relates to quarterback stats, Vincent says final numbers don't matter at all for practices. Mahomes doesn't go 12 for 12 every practice. I should pull up the numbers here so I know what's going on. CH99 asks, has Josh Dubow ever given Carr a 2 on a throw? Great question. Ryan adds, as long as we're saying our weather, 101 in Manteca. Let's see who's got the quarterback numbers from today. Let's check in on that. I really don't know what to expect. Brock Purdy, here we go. Let's put it up here so everybody can see. Whoop. What do we have? Matt Mayoko. Brock Purdy, 9 of 18 on 37 reps. That's not a good percentage. Trey, 3 of 7, each with a pick. So 9 of 18, 3 of 7. Darnold, 5 of 8. Sam, 2 of 3. Yeah, I mean, those numbers do not look good. Those aren't good passing numbers at all. I don't think, let me re-examine here. I don't think Trey or Brock are properly represented by those numbers. I don't think either. Trey, to me, did not have a sub 50% passing day based on good throws and bad throws. I didn't think Brock had a 50% passing day based on the numbers. Those are the numbers. Like I said, I gave Trey a positive passing score on 71% of his throws and Brock on 81%. So do with that what you will. I'm still working through exactly what to do with it. But when I say positive, I mean a 0 or better. So like a passing grade, basically. So that's different than what the raw number. Today's a really good example of where a system like this that tries to grade throws is a little bit different than a system that, is purely the numbers. And nobody who, like all these guys who are posting the numbers, they are not just talking about the numbers. So I think we all understand that. But when we're talking about something that not everybody gets to see, maybe it helps to have kind of another layer here that scores it out. I'm not tweeting those grades yet or really putting them anywhere other than here because, I want to work it out for a little while and see if I think it's working. But I think some of these numbers are just numbers are objective. If I start tweeting, it's one thing for me to say, like, I think this guy's been good, this guy's been bad, he's been an A, he's been a B, he's been a C. I'm trying to make the subjective objective with a grading system. It's just such a lightning rod. Oh, you said this was a 1.5 and this was so I'd like to keep it here where we can talk about it in the full context. 7 of 16, another pick 6, pathetic. Yeah, I mean, I think to call Brock Purdy pathetic today would be a mischaracterization. Just as to say Trey wasn't Just to say Trey, if 3 of 7 with a pick for him, and a similar pick to the other day where he hit a linebacker square would also be a mischaracterization. I came away thinking Trey was fine. I thought they were fine today. I thought Brock made good throws. Media blowing smoke up everybody's ass. Yeah, don't trust them, man. Everyone's just making shit up for their agenda. But not a lot of reps, right? You can see the reps were unequal today. So grading the QBs this way takes out the reps issue. It gives a solid baseline. It does, except it does. It's an improvement. But like, to me, one thing today's exercise showed me was when you get way more throws like Brock did, you're going to probably score a little higher because your zeros, your pluses, you can get a bunch of, like, I think most NFL throws are like zeros and plus 0.5s. So that's what Brock did today. Brock had a bunch of plus 0.5. All of his plus throws were 0.5 throws today for me, 5 of them. So that built up his score, right? Like the last practice I went to, I did not go to Saturday, but Friday. If I'd used the scoring system on Friday, I think Trey would have had a lot of plus 0.5 throws that on that day in my old system they weren't good enough to be a birdie in the golf system. So I graded them pars. But I found myself afterwards thinking like, God, those were better than par throws. So that was part of the reason I kind of changed, was because I really felt like that system was not properly grading. A lot of like intermediate throws where all these guys have actually been pretty good. Like they're all pretty good on the intermediate throws, but Trey's been good on it. Brock's been good on it. I was standing next to Dubow and Grant today, and I said this here on the stream the other day, but like when you look at Sam has practiced in a fashion that I think lends itself to the zero throws. He does not. This is my sense, but if we had kind of charted how far guys throw the ball, I get my feeling is that he pushes the ball down the field less than Trey or Brock, and that's good for this kind of scoring system. But that's what Brandon Allen told us is good for playing quarterback for Kyle Shanahan. So, yeah. But that's why I gave a percentage, like the percentage of throws that were positive grades. And that's where Brock had a lot of those plus 0.5s and zeros. You move the ball with plus 0.5s and zeros. You get down the field with plus 0.5s and zeros. That's most of your throws. Those are going to be the majority of your throws, plus 0.5s and zeros. So that's where Brock today had 8 zeros, 5 pluses, and 3 negatives. Okay, other roster stuff. Oops. But I'll answer this. Daquan says, I love the golf analogies. I think people these days try hard to be obtuse. They think everything's a bad idea without actually trying to listen. Yes, don't get me wrong. I did not get yelled off of golf analogies. I really like the golf analogies. They're fun and a lot of people like talking about, people like DMing me and talking to me about them. So I like them. They were good for, branding, but I don't think they're the most effective way to really think about throws. So I had to make a decision. Do I have to do the thing that's more fun because people notice it? Or the thing that I think is more accurate here? And ultimately, the thing that wins out is the fact that PFF, as I said earlier, PFF has an entire database. Like we know how many plus throws get made over the course of a season by the best quarterbacks. It's not a lot. And so it's a good reminder, like I shouldn't be handing out +1 throws. Josh Allen had 44 of them in 16 games. So if a guy has a practice with 5 +1 throws, either he had one of the great practices or maybe I'm being a little too generous. So that really helped me kind of hone in on that. Robbie says there's been a lot of sacks on Brock in camp. Is the D-line that good or is the O-line that bad? I think there've been a fair amount of sacks on just Niners quarterbacks. Steve Wilkes brings some heat. You get days without Trent Williams. I think the D-line has been good. this week will be a big week, Thursday, Friday, to see Colton McKivitz. Is Spencer Burford up to the task of being a guy that plays 17 games without being subbed in and out? So I think some of that's TBD on how good the offensive line is. It is a concern to a point for me. There's not a lot of depth, but John Feliciano can play. But yeah, it's definitely something to watch. Did you really upgrade? We think you upgraded at pass blocking at right tackle with McKivitz over McGlinchey. Did that really happen? Is this the week where you find out with Max Crosby? But I think the D-line's been good. I think Cleveland Farrell's been good. Taco Charlton, who they just added today, came. I don't know if he came free or shed his block. It appeared as though he just came completely free. But Taco Charlton has been good and has given them, I think, is giving them some depth. So I think it's a good D-line even without Bosa. So I tend to lean them, but I think it's a combination of both things. I think it's a combination of both things. Like I do think there are questions about this offensive line. Daniel asked, do you think all of the noise will cause the Niners to underachieve? No. I think not being good enough in some spots in the end, injuries, all that stuff. But if they underachieve, it won't be because we talked about them a lot. There was a lot of noise last year, and they found a way. So are they right about Brock? That's a big thing. Can they protect? That's a big thing. What does Steve Wilkes do defensively? That's a massive thing. Do Debo and Christian McCaffrey stay healthy? Do you have at least one of those guys for every game? Does Ayuk have the breakout year people think he's going to have? Do Ty Davis Price and Jordan Mason give you the depth that you think they're going to, that I think that a lot of people think they're going to make up for the fact that Elijah Mitchell's already hurt? All those types of things. So, yeah. Mike, nothing the matter with subjective grading system of actual throws. It's a communication tool, not a basis for depth chart assignment. I hear you saying Brock moves the ball. Lance has the yips. My good perspective, I agree with you up until the last sentence. I don't think Lance has the yips. Lance does something today, didn't really make that throw today, I don't think. Does sometimes struggle, especially to his right, it seems, with that throw into the flat, and maybe take it a little off. But it's not a yips situation to me. Not all misses are the same. The yips is, Steve Sachs can't throw to first base. Chuck Knobloch, these are old baseball players, people, can't throw to first base. The catcher from Major League can't throw to the pitcher. You can't putt from inside 3 feet because you can't keep your club still. Like, those are mental blocks that create physical results. Those are the yips. Trey does not have the yips. Trey is developing, I think, and I think he has developed and gotten better. But it's not a mental block causing physical results. And I think he does a good enough job sometimes with those throws. It's not all the time. So I don't think that's the issue. Nash Pot. Actually, before I do Nash Pot, just a reminder, if you're here, we would appreciate if you hit that like button. If you subscribe to this channel and you hit that little alert, it lets you know when a new video is up and when we go live. We have a podcast that is down in the description below. Often it's both of us in the last month, and right now, today, this week, it's me, John, a little vacay off to Lake Tahoe. So I'm going to practice today and tomorrow. I'm giving you practice reports based on what I'm seeing. But to get whatever that content is, help it grow. We appreciate the growth support, and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Okay, now I have to get this thing to stop. All right. Where were we? Nash Pat. What's your take on Brandon Ayuk in training camp? It seems like he's been on the cusp of a breakout season the last few years. Does it look like this season we see him turn into a star, and why? I was thinking today watching Ayuk. Actually, this is a perfectly timed question. Yes, it feels like he's taking another step. He catches everything. But what I found myself wondering today is, okay, he's better. Why? Why is he better? If you had a chance to interview him, and I know somebody very respected journalist out at practice today, he's going to do an interview with him that I think we'll see soon. One of my questions would be why I think you're better, but why? And maybe the answer is incremental improvement in everything. Maybe the answer is entering his physical prime. Maybe the answer is a natural progression. I don't know. I'd be interested in what the answer is. But this is a guy who's always practiced hard. He has always practiced hard. He's always been one of their harder practicers. And nobody catches more balls in a practice, I don't think, than Brandon Ayuk. Because when they do things that involve multiple receivers, he doesn't get the ball. On his jog back from his route, he'll throw with somebody else, and he might catch 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 more balls as he jogs back to the line of scrimmage. So, I think the question is like, what is the best you can get out of a receiver in this offense? Is there going to be a fundamental natural cap on how many balls Brandon Ayuk can catch because of the other guys and the style, right? The run game, McCaffrey, Debo. There's just Jennings, Juice, Kittle. There's just a lot of guys to spread the ball around to. And I don't have any doubt that Brandon Ayuk on another team with less weapons could put up bigger numbers than he'll probably put up for the 49ers this year. If he leads this team in receiving, it's going to be really impressive for him to do it when, it's safe to throw to him because he catches stuff. He catches things that are seemingly out of his radius. He has very long arms, and he's a good leaper, and he's unafraid. He's tough. But there are just a lot of throws over the course of a game that are easier throws to other guys behind the line of scrimmage and around the line of scrimmage than some of the throws to Ayuk. And, I think it suppresses his numbers a little artificially. But yeah, everything everybody's saying about him looking great is very real. That's very real. Maturity. Yeah. Maturity. I mean, it's all of that stuff. Waggy making some noise inside. Yeah, he's practiced as well. Gronk spiked the like button. Appreciate that. We will see a top 90 draft pick be a receiver next year if Gray doesn't pop this year. Maybe. But it could be that Ronnie Bell steps up. Ronnie Bell's not Danny Gray fast. Nobody on the roster is. But maybe he steps up. Maybe one of these other guys steps up. But maybe. Every practice, one thing I come away with is we never talk about Ray McCloud, and he's underrated. He practices hard. He makes plays. I think Danny Gray breaks out next year. Next year or this year? Next year. I watch Danny Gray a lot. And, he needs to consistently catch the ball. He had a ball today that was not a great throw, but a classic hit him in his hands. And it's the kind of, and I said this last week, and I'll repeat it. There are plays to be made. And if you're a receiver, you don't want every throw in a practice to be on the money. You don't want every throw to be between your numbers because there's 0 plays. You want to make plus plays. You want to flash. And Danny Gray's made some plus plays. He's made some flash plays. But there have been, over the course of 2 weeks, a handful of throws where if he makes that play, it is a, hey, notice me, coaches. type of play. And he's let a few of those go. And today was another one of those, that kind of tough throw outside, hit him in the hands, make that play, and kind of put them in a position to have to put you on the field. And, I think anybody that works in any type of industry where you're being evaluated, you benefit by being in situations that aren't perfect, because it lets, if you can handle it, it lets people show. It lets you show people, right? If you're what's probably one of the great examples is Sully Sullenberger landing his plane on the Hudson River. Sully Sullenberger probably would have told you when he started being a pilot that he hoped every single flight of his was perfect, and he landed them every time, but on ground, solid ground. But if you said to him, Sully, you're a really good pilot, and we've got a plane today that's going to have to get landed on the Hudson River, and either you can pilot that sucker, or this other guy who never makes any plus plays can pilot that sucker. Who do you want piloting that sucker? You want Sully Sullenberger piloting that sucker. So, those are Brandon Ayuk, Debo, McCaffrey. These guys, they land the plane on the Hudson sometimes. And if you're a receiver, you want to be in those situations because they're not life or death. You don't have, 200 other lives relying on you. You just got to go make a play. And I know personally for me, like in my other work in broadcasting, whether it be like studio TV hosting or play-by-play, I always kind of relish when something goes wrong, because I feel like it's a chance to show somebody you can work without a prompter. You can work in breaking news. You can adapt. There are a lot of people that do TV that if you turned their prompter off, they would suck. So, but nobody knows that until it goes wrong. I think anybody that's confident in themselves should see those things going a little bit wrong as opportunities to show that you can keep your cool, that you can perform under pressure, because those things are happening. I think NASA calls it preparing for every eventuality, right? Like, not possibility. It's not possible that something will happen. It is, if we run this drill 1,000 times, eventually all of these things are going to happen, and we got to be prepared for them. And, I think for receivers, those are where you can really make big strides, is those plays, especially in a practice where you're not getting hit. Now, look, Juwan Jennings is a guy, he would have been tough in a practice to say, God, he makes all those, he lands the plane on the Hudson. Juwan Jennings in practices historically drops the ball, less so this year, but he drops the ball. But you get him in a game, and he's on the short list of guys you'd want to have in the spots that he's in. He's always in those tough spots in big moments. It feels like 3rd down, got to have it. 3rd and 9, 4th and 7. So, he's a guy that maybe you wouldn't have identified in a practice in the same way that you recognize in a game, has that to him. Let's see here. Any more comments on this? Yeah, Bell to practice squad. I think, yeah, that's ideal. Bottom line is we have to take the top off of defense. Yeah, I mean, that's what they need to do to win the Super Bowl. Do they need to do that to get to the NFC Championship game? No, I don't think. Not in this NFC this year. But, several people asked me today if I'd be talking about the Pac-12 on the show today, and I plan to, but I'll be honest, I'm a little wiped out. I talked about it on Friday. Spent a lot of time on the phone talking to people about it the last several days. And it is something I want to talk more about. There'll be a time probably soon where talking football as it relates to the Pac-12 will actually feel kind of appropriate, because it should be a really good year. And the mix of it being the final countdown for the league and being potentially a very good league is really a bizarre thing. I mean, it's a wild situation to be in. Somebody who does a lot of Pac-12 coverage, like, oh, what a play, what a game, what a moment, what it means. Well, it's all gonna end. So that's a weird thing. I've been thinking a lot about that and like how to handle that. when I do Pac-12 stuff. But that is something I want to talk more about. But I think for today we'll leave it at that. The Niners stuff. We're going to roll those QB grades out again tomorrow. I'm going to spend some time today diving a little further into kind of how PFF, grades that stuff, because I think it's great that with that we've got their database. So if you got questions for the coming week, put those in the holster and bring them on Tuesday. Should be around the same time, maybe a little earlier because Kyle Shanahan spoke today. We'll see. But figure Tuesday around 1:30, 2-ish again. And then they'll be off to Vegas. And we can have some, I think there'll be some other things coming out of there that are pretty relevant. So that's that. All right. Thanks for hanging. Hit that like button on your way out the door. That'd be awesome. If everybody here hit that like and maybe hit that subscribe, that's helpful. We appreciate that very much. And we'll have I will definitely have some more college football. I have a lot of college football thoughts, and I'm looking forward to this college football season. And I want to talk about that stuff. So we'll get to that as well. But this will be a good week, and we got a game at the end of this week. So, all right. Adios, everybody. Great seeing you. Thanks for hanging. Have a great week. And